Hey, good morning, it's Owen Bigland. This is the Inside Edge video blog. I was watching BNN Network a couple of weeks ago, but I've seen this type of show scenario play out many times over the last 25 years, and I'm sure you have too. It was the old buy versus rent scenario, and they always have a guy on there that's usually in real estate, usually a realtor, saying that, you know, buying is the way to go, especially if you've got a long-term horizon, which I 100% agree with if you've been watching my blogs here for a while. But there's always that pundit, that guy that'll come out there saying, you know, I think renting, especially with the prices you're paying today in cities like, you mentioned Vancouver and Toronto, when you're paying $400,000, $450,000, $500,000 for a one-bedroom condo, you know, he thought that was absolutely ludicrous and that you could rent for far less. And these guys that are the pro-rent, and especially now when the prices are so high, they forget to, omit several important factors. The first one is that the reason the prices are where they're at right now, let's say $500,000 for a Yaletown condo, is because interest rates are at a fraction of what they were 10 or 15 years ago. That old I rent and save the difference analogy worked a little bit, just a little bit. I'll tell you why, because 15 years ago to take out a mortgage was at 13 or 14%. 15 years ago, rents were quite inexpensive in a lot of major cities. You could buy a condo for $200,000 in Vancouver, but your mortgage rate was 14%. You could rent an apartment in the West End for $580 a month. So there was a little bit of a difference there because of those high interest rates. But today, the script is completely flipped, of course. Sure, the prices are up, but the interest rates are at a fraction of what they were 15, 20 years ago. And so the affordability is about the same. But here's the other thing that they fail to mention. They somehow seem to think that you either buy and you pay your mortgage and you pay your maintenance fees and your property taxes and your repairs and everything else that comes along with home ownership, or you rent someplace, but they seem to think that to rent, it doesn't cost you anything. And it certainly does these days. And I've blogged about it a few times before. Have a look, go on to Craigslist or Kijiji and have a look what it's costing you today to rent an apartment in downtown Vancouver. It's not cheap. I can tell you, I'm renting one-bedroom apartments in Yaletown, Crosstown, downtown Vancouver for anywhere from $2,000 to $2,250 a month. That's the current rents my tenants are paying on downtown units. So you're hardly paying $800 a month to rent a place anymore. You could find something like that way out on Hastings Street somewhere, but it's going to be a dump. So your cost to own right now, with the interest rates the way they are not much more than what it's going to cost you to rent. So you buy that $500,000 condo, and let's say which is not going to happen, over 25 years, that condo does not appreciate in value at all over 25 years, which is impossible. Because first off, real estate will always at least keep pace with inflation. Not in lockstep, but the price to buy real estate will always increase to inflation, and there's always a lag there. Because first off, demand keeps increasing every year. Supply is limited. We're not making any more land. The cost to build the structure, the condo, the house, the townhouse, the bricks, the siding, the wood, the roofs, the appliances, those increase every year with inflation. So that's why if you take out a 30 or 40 year graph of real estate prices in the Lower Mainland, you'll see it straight up. There's always corrections in there in the short term. But if you were to buy that $500,000 Yaletown condo today, 25 years from now it's still worth $500,000. Well, you've at least paid off the asset. As a matter of fact, if you put it on a bi-weekly payment or an accelerated payment plan, you can pay that $500,000 condo off in about 19 or 20 years. And you're left with a $500,000 fully paid for condo. The alternative is to rent, paying not much less, let's call it $2,000 a month or $24,000 a year to rent a comparable apartment. At the end of 25 years, you don't have anything to show for it. You've actually paid off your landlord's apartment over the last 25 years. So buying your principal residence should be the first step for everyone. I know I'm going to get a few YouTube comments on this. You're a realtor, and of course you think it's a great time to buy real estate, but get yourself a calculator out, look at the costs of renting versus owning in the long term, and you'll see that it doesn't even come close. On top of that, buying your principal residence in Canada is the best and only tax shelter we still have today. Your RRSP, keep in mind, is fantastic. You get the tax deduction, the assets will accumulate, shelter, tax-free. But when you come to pull that RRSP out, the tax man is going to come a-knocking, and he is going to take out a huge bite out of that RRSP when you convert it to a RIF. With real estate, you buy that $500,000 condo today, 15 years from now it's worth $1 million, you decide to sell it, that $1 million comes to you completely tax-free. It's the best and only tax shelter we have. So the argument renting versus buying holds zero water these days. Anyone that tries to tell you that in the long term you're better being a lifetime renter does not know what they're talking about. Run the numbers, look on Craigslist what it's going to cost you to rent, run the numbers on what it's going to cost you to buy, and lock in a 5-year term at 2.5%, which is what you can get right now. And I think you'll see that it is far better to rent or to own, especially if you're looking at, I've always said on my blog here, you've got an 8 to 10 year horizon or more. Far better off. The only time that it makes sense to rent is if someone says, I just moved to Vancouver, I'm not really sure how long I'm going to stay in the city, it's awfully expensive, then I would rent for the short term. Or if you say, I might only be living here for a few years and I'm probably going to end up getting transferred or moving back east, again, stay renting. But if you like Vancouver, you're going to make it your home and you commit to 8 to 10 years, you will do far better off owning. I'm Owen Bigland. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.